And as the show progresses, you realize, this construction of I'm doing this for my family because I need money. I desperately need money for my family is a load of horseshit. This guy's doing it because it gets him hard, because it literally and figuratively, because it makes him feel good about himself, because it makes him feel alive. He's not a good guy. And yet I love the character. I mean, you gotta love your characters, it seems to me.
In a previous section, we talked about weaknesses and what makes a strong, powerful, immoral weakness for your hero. But your hero doing terrible things has a catch. You absolutely cannot have immoral actions without implementing a concept called empathy. Why is this so? By not having empathy, you essentially risk that the audience is going to lose connection to your protagonist, and they're not going to care. And when the audience stops caring, the story stops. Empathy is the catalyst that connects a relationship from the audience to your character. So what is empathy? Empathy is when the audience is capable of understanding the actions and the feelings of the character, and this is critical. The power of empathy is that if your audience sees the motivations or pressures of your characters, you can have your characters do some awful things and some really immoral actions, and the audience will understand. They'll get it. They'll know exactly why the character did what the character did. This is key if you want to implement the immoral actions that are driven from the weaknesses of your characters.
You have to have at least empathy. So I have a great empathy for them because I spent a lot of time with them. Like I said, I wrote a lot of their childhoods that didn't go into the book, and so I think I come from. I think I'm a big believer in when you know where people come from, you understand them a lot better. Even you still may not like them, but there lends a certain amount of humanity to them as opposed to being able to just write them off as this evil person. And so, to me, it's like the most important thing you can do is to have that empathy as the writer.
In this section, I will be looking at anti-hero television shows. And a great representation of an empathetic anti-hero is Walter White from Breaking Bad. When we first see Walter White, he teaches basic chemistry with students that have no respect for him. Then later, he's scrubbing one of the students' cars. He's surrounded by friends that are much more successful than he is. Walter White is greatly humiliated in his life, and he's rewarded with being diagnosed with lung cancer. At first, Walter justifies that he can make meth to make money for his family, which is true at first, and I think for a long time we the audience believe this. But Walter gets more than just money from the drug business. He gets praise.
Glass grade. And you got crystals in here 2 inches, 3 inches long. This is pure glass. You're a goddamn artist.
He is respected and valued for the incredible product that Walter White yields. He's finally become someone more than the person he was before, and he's willing to hold on to that respect for anything. This is why Walter White can do some really immoral things, but we, the audience, feel no disconnect from Walter. We understand him, we empathize with him because we've seen his motivations and the pressures he faces. We understand that what Walter desires is respect and being valued, so Walter does whatever it is that he can to keep himself on top.
Jesse, you asked me if I was in the meth business or the money business. Neither. I'm in the empire business.
When you find out you're dying, you can either go, well, I guess there's a lot of ways you could go, but the two fundamental ways you can go, you just sort of retreat into your house, into your burrow, and sort of, pull the covers over your head, and the other version is just to say, screw it, and just go out with a bang.
So we saw an example of an anti-hero we empathize with. What anti-hero do we not empathize with? It's Dexter. Don't get me wrong, I love the show Dexter. The premise is just insanely cool. And Dexter is still a great character. He's smart, competent, and moral, but the character gap is that we don't empathize with Dexter. Of course, we're provided with the explanation that, well, you see, Dexter's mom was brutally murdered in front of him when he was a baby, so if de facto, that's why Dexter must murder people. This weak explanation is not something we can understand, or something that even makes sense, and I think the writers of Dexter realize this. You can tell because Dexter's signature flaw is purely psychological and not at all immoral. If you think about it, Dexter never does anything immoral driven on his need to kill. Dexter of course does other unrelated, immoral things, but they are not driven by the central weakness of his character. For example, in Season 2, Dexter screws over Dokes pretty damn hard, even though Dokes is innocent. This is immoral, but we empathize with his decision, because it isn't driven by Dexter's need to kill. It is driven by the fact that Dexter realizes that he needs to be free for his sister Deborah, and that she would crumble if his true self was revealed. This is something we can understand, which is why Dexter is allowed to make this immoral decision. You could argue that Dexter is acting immorally, because killing is wrong and he shouldn't do it, but who really cares? Who really feels bad for the characters who deliberately murder innocent people? Because let's look at it ourselves for a moment. We love vigilante justice, and how sexy it is to go against the law based on a righteous personal code of conduct. People love it, so we really don't perceive Dexter as doing anything immoral from our point of view. Whether you like it or not, we are very quick to judge the characters that Dexter kills, and we are very easily convinced that these characters deserve to die. And this leads me to another important point, is that immoral actions in the story should be acted upon other important characters to the story. The immoral actions don't really count when it's acted upon characters we barely know, or characters we don't care about. So I think the creators of Dexter made a compromise. For exchange of a really cool premise, they were stuck with not expanding Dexter's character fully, because the flaw that Dexter has could never be used immorally against important characters in the show. Because explaining that Dexter just needs to kill for the sake of needing to kill is not enough for the audience to empathize with. Because we, the audience, would not hold empathy or understand if Dexter did anything immoral driven by his need to kill. To implement empathy with your characters, consider the following. What is the moral or psychological need of your character? If the weakness is psychological, flesh out the weakness more so it can be used immorally. The weakness can then be used as a bridge to link the immoral actions to the causes that push these actions. It's up to you at this point if you want to develop the immoral actions first or the causes first. Sometimes causes in this situation explain the weakness of your character, or sometimes they are the cause of the immoral actions through the weakness. Let me explain this for a second. Let's say you chose for your character's weakness, apathy. Your character doesn't care about anything. However, this is a group 1 weakness, and is only psychological, so we must flesh this out a bit more so it can be used immorally against other characters. Let's say a friend character wants our main character to attend a funeral for moral support. But because the main character doesn't care about anything, he drinks heavily the day before and sleeps through the funeral. When the friend asks about his absence, the main character explains that it wouldn't have mattered if I was there anyways. This is pretty shitty of our main character, and simply saying that our main character is apathetic is probably not enough to get the audience to empathize with him. So let's think of causes for apathy. If you Google search, you can find that a cause for feelings of apathy can be from the loss of faith in oneself, or rather, if a person doesn't believe that they are capable of anything. To add empathy then, we can craft a backstory about our main character, that he has a daughter and used to have a wife. When the wife died, the main character was unable to console his daughter, and the daughter began to hate our main character. He then begins to lose faith in his abilities as a father, and believes he's not any good for moral support. Crafting a backstory like this, we the audience would be able to empathize with our main character for his development of apathy, through which we could understand the immoral actions he makes based on this weakness. Notice that this cause I mentioned with the wife dying is the cause for the main character's weakness. You can also have causes that act through the weakness to have the main character make immoral decisions. For example, let's say you're the main character. Your weakness is that you are dishonest. You have a friend who has a husband. The friend kills her husband and runs to you claiming it was self-defense. However, she has no bruises or marks of harm on her, and she's confided in you in the past that she's hated her husband. and wanted a way out of her marriage. However, you have always hated the husband and he was a jerk to you. The cops ask you to testify and you lie for your friend, saying that her husband was abusive. Your friend, after all, has a really bad temper and you already know what happens when she's mad. So lying to the police was an immoral action, and lying probably kept the husband from getting the justice he may or may not have deserved. However, this action could be empathized with, because you didn't tell the lie just because you lie and that's it. You told the lie because you have loyalties to your friend, which is something the audience can empathize with. However, this cause has worked through your tendency to lie, so it would have taken much less convincing to tell the lie. An upstanding person would recognize justice must take place and would have told the truth. This cause doesn't explain why you're dishonest, like the previous example explained why our hero was apathetic. Like I said, there can be two different causes here. So consider these things when it comes to your character's immoral actions. Are the immoral actions that your character makes genuine to the character? As in, would your character actually make the decisions that he or she makes? Do these actions hurt important characters? The immoral actions that your character makes can not only affect minor characters. The characters that are harmed by your hero must be characters that the audience cares about. More things about causes. Causes don't need to be some dramatic childhood trauma. It can be much more simpler and tactful things like pressure from a boss, a hurtful remark from a spouse, or the desire to make a parental figure feel proud. Now sprinkle in some details. What is the background of your character? What was the character's childhood like? Their upbringing, their experiences? Think of all these little details. They don't have to be used in the story, but they can be used to help you shape the character down to the little fine details.